Hi guys, just wanted to quickly go over some of the main points in hip thrusts. Okay, so I posted a wee video on how to get the bar on without assistance from a coach or another person. But this one is just to actually go through some of the main points. So first things first, don't come down too low off the bench. So you want your sort of like upper back area on the bench, okay? If you've got nothing on the bench but like your neck or the top of your shoulders, what you'll tend to find is that the weight can't get transferred up through your body well enough to get into the glutes, and you end up feeling it a lot more in your quads. So, because for example, you want to be able to get up and over, okay, like get the weight transferred through here. If you're too far down the bench here, you'll struggle to do that, okay? So that's one of the first points to remember. But the main point I want to really go over is how to make sure that your glutes are doing the work and you're keeping all the tension through the glutes while engaging your core. So we've been through this in several exercises, and hopefully what you'll find is that in most of the exercises the cue is the same. Okay, so what we tend to sometimes find on every exercise, including the hip thrusts, is that the focus is so much on lowering the hips down and up that the ribs get sort of like, or the core gets ignored, and therefore the ribs flare out. So we've been through this quite a few times with other exercises. So a simple wee cue that I want to think about to ensure that doesn't happen is that you want to try and imagine that your ribs and your hips move together, move like as one, okay? So so that's what we're looking for you to do. So at the start of the movement, okay, you're squeezing your glutes to tuck your tailbone under, right? As a result, this head should be forward slightly, so don't have your head way back here. So you should feel the abs are braced a wee bit, okay? The ribs are nice and down, the glutes are engaged, the tailbone's under. So if you were to put your hand or your finger at the top of the hip, right, and on your lower rib, there'd be a certain gap. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. There's the gap there, right? So if you move these as one, the rib and the hip, if they come down together, right, the gap remains, okay? So that nothing happens here. You're just coming up and down as one, right, like that. If, however, you don't keep engaging through the core and you just let the hips sink, what will happen is the ribs will get left behind like that, and the gap between the finger and the thumb increases significantly because you've left the ribs, you've kind of like left them behind. So you want to bring them with you, right? So just bear that in mind. So as you come down, the ribs should come with the hips like that. So it's that movement there. So it's quite a rigid movement in that respect. Okay, it's quite a rigid movement like so, as opposed to hip drop. If the hips just drop, that's when you get the rib flare, and the abs here are engaging, which is the exact same in the power rollouts, which is the exact same in deadlifts, the exact same in squats, the exact same in pretty much every exercise. So glutes, tailbone under, ribs down, and then let them follow each other, or bring them down and up together, like that, okay, as opposed to that, where this appears, okay, so you want to keep that line, okay, so that's what we're looking for, really focus on squeezing the glutes. Another thing is don't go too heavy too soon, because what will happen, especially if you're quite quad dominant, is that if you try and put too much weight in the bar too soon, your quads will just take over, okay, so what we want you to do is find your glutes first. So you want to do a few sets where you feel your glutes are working. Obviously your lower back and hamstrings might come into play a wee bit, but what I mean is that primarily you want to feel this in your back side, okay? Don't come up too high, right? That's the maximum height you should be coming up to, not a way up here, right? Again, what you'll find is, another wee telltale sign that you're probably doing it quite well, is that if you're in this position here, and you're getting that nice position, you probably feel your hip flexors getting stretched or lengthened, and that is because if you're contracting your glutes, they're trying to open up the hips, which is a good thing, okay? It's the same idea when you're doing that lunge stretch, and we ask you to squeeze your glutes, it helps stretch the hip flexors out. So just bear that in mind. If you feel this sort of through even the middle of your quad, where your rec fem is, because that's one of the hip flexors, or here, the psoas, if you feel it there or there at the top of the movement, potentially it's not a bad thing if you feel your glute muscles are also working, okay? Because if you feel it specifically in the middle here and at the hip flexor, and you're getting a good movement and you know that you're keeping this down, then it probably just means this is getting stretched a wee bit. Okay, so try and differentiate between this is getting stretched either because you're doing well to get your glutes working versus you're actually just pushing through the quads. And another way to differentiate that is you should be pushing down into the floor as opposed to pushing that way. So if you feel like you're pushing through your toes and you're pushing away and up, it's because your quads are taking over, right? So remember, you're trying to create the movement by tucking the hips under, keeping the ribs down. That's what the movement is. Okay, so there's a few things to ponder, okay, in order to get this right, and I'm trying to address various different issues that people seem to have over the various classes. So if you're getting a good position, you feel this in your glutes, and you're getting a mild stretch in this hip flex area, or even through the middle of the quad a wee bit, then it's not necessarily a problem. It means that you're just stretching these muscles, because when one shortens, the other lengthens. In this case, the glutes are shortening, so this is getting lengthened slightly. It's not a bad thing. If, on the other hand, you feel that the whole movement is because it's the quads, it's because the quads are taking the majority of the weight, you're maybe not getting this movement right, or the weight is too heavy, and as a result, you're just focusing too much on getting the bar up and down. And if you do that, you're probably pushing away and down into the floor like this, and it just becomes a movement for the sake of a movement, if that makes sense. So by all means, add resistance or add more weight to the bar, but only if you feel you're getting the movement and you're getting the most out of the movement, i.e. the glutes are feeling it primarily. So these are just a few things to consider. I've just kind of thought these things in my head, so I've probably missed a few things out, but they were the main things I wanted to address, okay? This losing the hips. So if you imagine it, we've just gone through it, it's the exact same concept with squats and deadlifts. So there's the pelvis and there's the lower rib. So if you're not moving as much, so that's what you should move that as one. If you do it as one, the gap there remains the same. Okay? If on the other hand, you keep the ribs behind and you disengage the abs, that happens. Look what happens to the gap, right? Watching. So the gap increases because the ribs are getting moved or flaring out, because you're not allowing the ribs and hips to move as one, which is what you want to do. So that is the movement there of pretty much any sort of hip hinge. Same with squats. As you go down, you want to keep that engaged, right? As opposed to there, where it's suddenly not engaged. Okay, so that's a wee simple cue that you can pretty much apply to every single exercise. Okay, while we're on the topic of squats, as a general rule, the lowering phase of the squats should be slower than the upward phase. Okay, so ideally we don't want to see this sort of movement and then back up. That shows that there's not a lot of control through the movement. It really should be much more like that, okay? And then up fast. Okay, that would be a slightly exaggerated loading phase, but you get the point. And equally, if you're just dropping, the chances are you're not getting the good engagement here either. So by slowing it down, it gives you the chance as well to really think about what's happening here. Are you keeping the pelvis in relation to the core and the ribs and stuff? So I think that was all. Okay, so this is the benefit of sort of consulting with other coaches. We all talk about these things and figure out the best way to put these ideas across. And this cue here, I think, was quite useful for thinking about what's going on here. Okay, so hope that helps. Any questions or anything you'd like us to cover, we can maybe do that if you just ask. Right, cheers.